Okay, at this time, I call to order this public hearing of the Bonner County Hearing Examiner on June 21st, 2023. Time is 1:30 p.m. We are located in the first floor conference room of the Bonner County Administration Building, 1500 Highway 2, Sandpoint, Idaho. We are streaming online via Zoom and YouTube. Is that right? Yep. Is there anyone in attendance in need of special assistance to see, hear, or participate in these proceedings? Please take note of the hearing procedures on the screens. I will be submitting my written decision within 5 business days of this hearing. And at this time, I'd like to lead you in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda? Nope. Any announcements?
Nope. Oh, just a note, we're going to hear file V0004-23 before CP.
Okay.
5.
So there was a change to the agenda.
Well, just that order in which I'll take the blame. It's his fault.
Oh man, Alex, way to go. Okay. All right. Are there any corrections or changes to the May 3rd, 2023 hearing minutes?
Not that we have.
Okay, then I approve them. And okay, so we're going to start with file V0004-23, a variance property line setback. The applicants are requesting a 5-foot property line setback where 25 feet is required to construct an accessory building on 11.25 acre platted lot. The property is zoned Rural 5. The project is located off Plumbago Point Road in Section 3, Township 59 North, Range 4 West, Boise Meridian, and I have no conflict of interest with this project. Yours.
All right. Thank you. Alex Van, planning staff. As Jacqueline alluded to, this is a variance for a reduced setback of 5 feet where 25 feet is required for the purpose of building a garage and storage room. The site is located on Plumbago Point Road in Coolin, Idaho. The applicants are Michael and Catherine Underhead. Here's the site plan for reference. Okay, background characteristics. This is an 11.25 acre platted lot. The land use designation is rural residential, and the zoning is Rural 5. This is access off of Plumbago Point Road, a privately owned and maintained gravel easement. It is characterized by anywhere from 0 to 30% plus slopes, no mapped wetlands, and does not have any waterfront. The property is served by an individual well, individual septic by Coolin and Kavanaugh Bay Fire District, Northern Lights Power, and West Ponderay School District number 83 for schools. This is the floodplain review from our floodplain manager. This parcel is located in Zone X, and there is no need for a further floodplain review. Here are the applicable standards to this variance. These are the agencies that were routed. We had no project-specific comments from any agencies. We did receive one comment from the Idaho Department of Environmental Quality, but it was just their form letter telling us general guidelines for different areas of concern. We received no comment from Idaho Fish and Game, Bonner County Road and Bridge, West Bonner County School District number 83, and the Idaho Department of Lands. All other agencies routed did not respond. The first criteria for a variance is to look at special conditions. to describe whether conditions apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone vicinity, which conditions are a result of lot size, shape, topography, or other circumstances over which the applicant has no control. The applicant stated on their application, the site is very steep, varying about 300 feet in elevation. Most of the property is not even walkable, at least not by me. The only flat land is the existing site for the house, built in 2004, and a portion of the driveway adjacent to the house. The only possible site for the garage storage room is to extend the width of the driveway by excavation into a rocky bank and use the fill to widen the driveway on the side opposite the bank. I've had this done at substantial cost. Staff response, the subject property is characterized by slopes greater than 30%, except at the proposed placement of the outbuilding and where the existing residence is located. The surrounding areas are also characterized by these steep slopes. However, most of those properties are undeveloped and it is uncertain they would experience similar circumstances. Steep slopes and natural features are considered circumstances that the applicant does not have any control over. The next criteria would be to explain how special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant stated, I have not changed the lot size or boundaries in July 2018. I emailed Bonner County Planning Department and explained I had only one possible site for a garage and asked if a 5-foot setback was correct. The office confirmed that as a sideline, I only needed a 5-foot setback. Based on that, I had the bank excavated. Unfortunately, I forgot to file for a site permit before beginning construction. It is virtually complete. After I realized my error, I self-reported to the planning department and filed for a site permit. A copy is attached. The staff response was, the subject parcel has not been replatted since 2003, 15 years before the applicant purchased the property. In July of 2020, BCRC 12-411 was changed by ordinance number 606. This updated the code, including eliminating the 5-foot setback, 5-foot sideline setback, for accessory structures. It was changed to 25 feet for all structures within Rural 5 zoning. The applicant applied for a building location permit in February of 2023. The applicant did not create the shape or the location of the property and did not create any circumstances to further any hardship other than what was natural to the property. And the final criteria is if it has a conflict with public interest, public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity of the subject parcel or lot. Applicant stated, the requested variance will not affect anyone other than the applicants. Applicants own the undeveloped land on the other side of the relevant property line. The garage storage area is for applicant's own personal use and will not affect traffic on the shared road. The nearest house on lot 2 is more than 400 feet away. The garage storage room is not even visible from any other house. In addition, the applicable CC&Rs for the property owners association require only a 5-foot setback for non-residential buildings. The staff analysis was no agency comments were received at the time of the staff report that indicated that granting this variance for the reduced setbacks for the purpose of future construction will have any negative impact on public health, safety, or welfare. We received no public comment. At the time of the staff report, I looked this morning as well, we didn't receive any. The staff analysis, staff concluded this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code based upon the following. As a result of setback requirements per the Bonner County Code and the natural features on the lot, the building envelope is restrictive, which makes developing the lot challenging. Granting the variance will allow the applicant to develop their property similarly to other surrounding properties. The site will be served by adequate sewage disposal services and water supply, though the accessory building in question will not be connected to any of these services. The conditions of approval, as proposed or amended, will ensure that the granting of this variance will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity of the parcel or lot. And attached are the conditions of approval. These are typical, that only the building envelope for the property line setback on the site plan has been reviewed for variance standards. All other development shown must comply with Bonner County Revised Code, excepting the modified building envelope herein. The variance shall not supersede any deed restrictions, and a stormwater management plan shall be required for all new building construction or development which occurs on or within 300 feet of a slope with 15% or greater incline. Do you have any questions at this time?
I don't. Thank you. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to read the rules of testimony. If you wish to testify, you will need to please state your name for the record. Public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per person. You may give your 3 minutes to another person so that they can have up to 6 minutes to speak, but no one will be allowed more than 6 minutes. Public comments are limited to the specifics of this application. If you agree with another speaker, please just acknowledge agreement. No need to repeat the information again. Any personal or derogatory comments about another person or their position will not be allowed. Clapping, cheering, or booing will not be allowed either. Is there anyone that has a written statement that they would like entered into the record? Any supporting public testimony in person or online?
Hi, thank you. I'm Mike Underhill, the applicant, one of the two applicants. My wife's not here. And it would be a waste of time for me to argue that because I think the gentleman has covered every point I would have made. But I just want to let you know I'm here, and I obviously care very much about the application, and I'm willing to answer any questions that you might have.
And we will have a point when you can get up.
Very good.
If
Thank you.
needed. Thank you. Anyone else supporting public testimony? No, anyone online?
No, their hand raised.
Any neutral public testimony in person or online? Opposing? In person or online?
Still no names.
Okay, so then I guess there's no one for you to rebut.
Okay.
But if you did want to, I think I might have skipped you giving your chance if you wanted to. I'm sorry. Was there anything you
I really
wanted
just
to
don't want
add?
to waste your time. So, I mean, I could go through all the arguments again, but I think he covered them very well. So,
Okay, thank you. Sorry
sure.
about that.
Oh, no problem, no
I see
problem
where
at all.
I
Thank you.
accidentally skipped you, so I apologize. Okay, so at this point, I close the hearing to public testimony. And okay, I move to approve this project, file V0004-23, a reduced setback for a 5-foot setback where 25 feet is required, finding that it is in accord with the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing, I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written or as amended. The action that could be taken to obtain the variance is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in the taking of private property. So at this time, I close file V0004. Did I get another zero? V0004-23. Okay. And we are going to move on to, thank you.
may I just ask clarification, please? Does that mean you've ruled on it or you will rule on it?
I have. I've approved it.
Oh, very good. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so we are moving on to file CUP 0005-23, a conditional use permit for retreat/private community facility. The applicants are requesting a conditional use permit for a retreat and private community facility. The parcel is 1.33 acres. The property is zoned Rural 10. The project is located off Glengarry Bay Road in Section 8, Township 56 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian. I have no conflicts of interest with this project.
One moment, please. We're gonna switch
I spoke too
computers.
fast.
I'll be right with you, I promise.
It's okay, I'm not even actually on that topic.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Good afternoon, members of the public, area examiner, Daniel Britt, planning staff, for the record. We're here this afternoon to discuss a retreat and a private community facility. File number is CUP 005-23. These are the applicable standards for which these requests were reviewed against, as found in the staff report. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a private community facility and a retreat. The site is located off Glengarry Bay Road. The area of the site is 1.33 acres. The parcel is currently zoned R10 and developed with multi-use structures. Private community facility.
I know, and then you have to.
Should we close that side door?
One of them.
They
Perhaps
left.
you want to close it?
We gotta leave one open.
They might start throwing a football or something out there.
They actually were quite happy with each other, they were just like, sounded like an argument.
Must have been successful. Okay. The parcel is currently zoned R10 and developed with multi-use structures. Private community facilities and retreats are conditionally allowed in the rural district. Some background on this parcel: it is an unplatted 1.33 acres. It is currently zoned R5 and has the land use designation of rural residential. Access is by Glengarry Bay Road, which is a Bonner County owned and maintained right-of-way with a paved travel service. So some environmental map features on the property. It does contain a small amount of map slopes. It does contain map wetlands, and it is on Lake Pend Oreille, as indicated in that purplish brown color on the screen. It currently is served by an individual well and individual septic system. It currently is not within a fire district. Utilities are provided through Vista Utilities, and currently it's in Lake Pend Oreille School District number 84. It does have some floodplain on it, as indicated in the blue. A portion of the structure there facing the northeast is in there. This is a review based on the floodplain manager. Based on the applicant's materials, this is a proposal for a use on an existing property and an existing facility. No proposal for development as defined by BCRC Title 14 has been made by the applicant in the submittal materials. The applicant is advised that the submittal portions of the property, as well as the primary structure on the property, are within the special flood hazard area. Any human-caused change within this special flood hazard area will require a flood development permit. Based on the review of this application materials, no further floodplain review is required on this proposal. So when we look at the use tables in BCRC, we look at the commercial use table. We look at retreats. And we see that in the rural district, they are conditionally allowed, as indicated on those arrows. On the screen, they have, in addition to meeting the design standards, they also have to meet the conditions found in Note 27 as well as Note 2. We're going to cover those now. So Note 2 says where access to the site is by a road, the road shall be located within a recorded easement or a public right-of-way and constructed to provide adequate emergency vehicle access, including but not limited to fire, medical, and law enforcement, except for the subject to the terms of an approval special use permit issued by the state or federal agency. So we know that Glengarry Bay is a Bonner County owned and maintained right-of-way with a paved travel surface. Note 27, meals, recreation, housing may be provided for the participants during the period of the retreat or program only. Retreats shall not be used by the general public for meals or overnight accommodations. Accommodations may include lodging, dormitories, sleeping cabins without kitchen facilities, tents, or other similar housing. Kitchen and dining facilities may be located in a single, centrally located building where access to the site is by road shall be located within a recorded easement or a public right-of-way constructed to provide adequate emergency vehicle access. Demonstration of adequate water and sewer provisions and fire protection are required. The applicant shall also demonstrate there is significant area to accommodate the retreat and any retreat. I struggle with that word, I apologize. Structures, so to minimize any adverse effects on surrounding properties and will not create hazards on adjoining properties. At minimum, the property shall meet the minimum lot size requirement of the applicable district. So keeping note 27 in mind, staff found that the applicant has indicated that the attendees of the retreat will be the only persons on site that will have access to meals and overnight accommodations. The existing structures will be for the overnight accommodations. The property currently is 1.33 acres. Though this parcel is not meeting the current zoning minimum, this parcel was in existence prior to the adoption of the Potter County Revised Code in 2008. Therefore, this is a legal non-conforming parcel. Therefore, and it's also afforded the same rights as if it were meeting the zoning minimum of that R10. The property is accessed by Glengarry Bay Road, which is a Bonner County owned and maintained paved road. This right-of-way can provide emergency vehicle access to the property. Currently, the property has an individual well. There's a permitted system in place for the existing structures. The property is currently not within the fire district. However, the applicant is currently working with the Sagal Fire District to annex on an annexation plan into the district and is under contract with Sagal Fire District to provide that fire protection. So looking at the private community facilities, in the public use table, note 3 is a requirement in addition to the design standards found in chapter 4. So note 3 is a little bit different in the public use table. For access to the site is by road, the road shall be located within the recorded easement or public right-of-way and constructed to the appropriate standards set forth in Title II of this code or Appendix A of this title, except for the subject to the terms of an approved special use permit by a federal or state agency. Proposed private community facility is located on Glengarry Bay Road, which is a Bonner County owned and maintained paved right-of-way. Bonner County Road and Bridge indicated that the travelway of Glengarry Bay Road is substandard condition. Substandard condition. The parcel has a previously permitted residential encroachment permit. However, since the right-of-way is only 20 feet wide on this section and 30 foot is required for a commercial encroachment, Bonner County Road and Bridge Department will be unable to issue a permit for this use. Furthermore, the opinion of Bonner County Road and Bridge Department, Glengarry Bay Road, is not suitable for supporting a commercial operation. These are the parking standards for each use. So with the commercial use for the retreat, it does require 2 spaces plus 1 space for each room for rent. The applicant has indicated that there'll be 15 rooms available for the sleeping quarters. Plus the 2, so it's the 17 total parking spaces. Each parking space is required to be a minimum of 200 square feet. So the total square footage that's needed for the parking is 3,400 square feet. The applicant has indicated they're proposing 6,000 square feet for on-site parking. Looking at the private community use facility, the code requires that assembly buildings, community halls, similar to what we're talking about, requires 1 space for every 100 square feet of floor area within the 500 feet of the principal use. The applicant has proposed just the 6,000 square feet. They'll need a total of 57 spaces is required for the private community facility, which would require just over 11,000 square feet for parking. The applicant does own an adjacent parcel that is 5 acres and is within 500 feet of the principal use. With a recorded parking agreement for code, which they can do, the standard will be met. These are the following agencies that were routed for comment on this file. Bonner County Road and Bridge Department and Bonner County GIS Department responded. Those letters are attached to the file this afternoon. I know Department of Fish and Game replied with no comment. We did not hear back from any of the other departments. We did receive public comments on this file. Concerns were over property value, overflow parking, traffic, population density, and noise for these uses. So staff concludes this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code based on the information found in the background portion of the staff report. This conclusion is demonstrated in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval. Conditions of approval have been added to facilitate the project's conformance to Bonner County Revised Code. That concludes my presentation. I can take any questions.
Okay, so this time we'll have the applicant make their presentation. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you. Give me just a minute to pull up that for the presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity today. My name is Jeremy Grimm with Whiskey Rock Planning and Consulting. I'm here to represent file CUP 00523, a conditional use permit for treatment private community facility for the Thorpes and also Stonehenge partners, which are effectively the Thorpes. Pretty exciting piece of property for a planner because it's got some history to it, and we're going to be talking about that. But if you're not familiar with the property, former Dr. Bird's Manufacturing Space Technology Research Center. This is a picture of the gate as you're going in, the Bird Air Lodge. As staff mentioned, the site is 1.3-ish acres, zone rural 10. Formerly an industrial research facility, manufacturing. We do have Sable Fire agreement to serve that will execute the approved. The orange area is the parcel that we're talking about for the CUP, but I put this larger red boundary around because that's the additional 7 acres that the Thorpes own. When we're at the entrance of the Bird Lodge, Air Lodge, this is looking west. And this is just the access to the overflow parking on that 5 acres that's across the road. And this would just show approximately where the overflow parking would be. There's a tennis court there. The red would be that access I just showed you. Just to acquaint you with the property, as was mentioned, this is a former manufacturing research facility that had a lot of interesting uses going along with it. This is just an example of the pretty impressive power system that runs the place. And these are about 10 feet tall, these power grids. They were doing a lot of manufacturing, assembly, aviation related activities on the site. This is one of the things that I'm going to be asking that you strike from the conditions, which is condition number B2 from Road and Bridge. And the reason is, it gets involved, and I'll go more into it, but this is what we call a legally non-conforming use. So because the use was established as a legal use at the time, which included manufacturing, assembly, aviation-related activity, that use can be continued per Idaho code, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But and county maintenance, even though it is a county-maintained and owned road, this sign is about 0.8 miles. Shows you where that sign is. The red dot is where the property is, the subject parcel. But this sign is where the blue arrow is. So I'm asking you to strike or consider striking that condition B2 for a couple of reasons. One, because it's an established existing use that we're simply asking to change to a less intensive use. There's really not a provision in Idaho code that says you can add new conditions onto it. And then similarly, the county doesn't even go per the sign all the way to the end of Glengarry, even though it technically could. So increasing the access to a commercial standard really doesn't affect the maintenance, because clearly the county ends its maintenance at the sign. This is the red dot, shows you as you're pointing to the property. This is the entrance to that bird flying lodge. You can see there's some hardscape there. There's a stone wall on either side of my truck there. Just kind of give you a width. As you go through the gate, it's 18 feet wide from hardscape to hardscape. So that's about the width as you enter the property. As you go further in the property, there are several outbuildings and residents on the property. This is the first one you encounter. On the right is the building that has 4 double garages with lodging above. But to the left there's 8 parking spots around the circle. And then in the back there, you'll see another building that has 3 parking spaces. This is just going a little further into the property around that circle where the 8 parking spaces are. And then looking back up at that lodge, as you come right in, you can see the 4 double garage doors that would have parking interior or exterior. You could probably get more than 8 parking spots there. As we head down to the water, you can see, you may recall, if we go back to that first picture, you'll see that the birds had pretty extensive, I'm not sure if you can, can you see that? Yeah, they had pretty extensive hangar and cement, a pretty large boat float plane apparatus here. And the applicants have removed that man-made concrete, or are in the process of it. And I'll show you in a second what the vision for the property is. But just for context, we're now down on the water. We're removing that concrete, trying to make it less industrial, more characteristic of, a property on the lake. You pull up a bunch of rebar out of there. And this is now flipped around looking the other way, and this just shows where an additional 4,000-ish square feet of parking area would be available. And now I'm standing in that future parking area looking towards the main facility. That is a very large hangar door. I don't know if it's 18 feet or 20 feet tall, but it's pretty enormous. And then to the left there is the historic facility that Dr. Bird uses as space research facility. I've circled these because, one of the conditions and concerns people might have is lighting. These are the largest floodlights I've ever seen in my life. They must be 2 or 3 feet by 3 feet. I don't know what Dr. Bird is doing. Presumably he needed a lot of light out there. But the applicants will be renovating this and taking those massive floodlights that point at the neighbors away. And this is sort of at the hangar looking back, just along the lake frontage there. You can see some of the concrete's been removed from the old helipads and amphibious floats areas. Now I want to kind of show you the vision of Thorpe's and the applicant. So this represents that lodge. That blue area is the hangar space that they are desiring to convert to a gathering room or convention room. And this kind of is the architectural rendering of the glass there is where that hangar door was. They tend to put a pergola detached with a fireplace and some outdoor seating there. And really dress the place up compared to its current state. And that's one of the reasons for the application is the owners have purchased this, and it's obviously a significant property to upkeep and to have a revenue source, to have special events or retreats would allow them to have revenue to keep it up and keep it in good shape. This is sort of another vision, just gives you an overview of what the facility would look like. We've got that existing conference area rooms with some lodging on the left, converted hangar, that outdoor facility, and then that parking and access all the way to the right there. We do have an agreement for fire protection service with Selkirk Fire and Rescue and EMS. For some reason, Dr. Bird excluded his property from the district. There's a little donut hole, and the owners are agreeable to being served and then eventually annexed into the fire district. So next I want to talk about non-conforming uses because not everyone understands exactly what they are and how they apply. So a non-conforming use, according to Gibbons Pursley Land Use Law Book, is a pre-existing use of land that lawfully existed prior to the enactment of the zoning ordinance and that is maintained after the effective date of the ordinance. So basically, you have the right to use it. The code changes, you can still use it and continue it. There's some case law. Idaho Supreme Court talks about the owner of a lawful non-conforming use has the right to continue in that use despite the subsequent enactment of conflicting zoning ordinances. So as the laws change, you can still continue your use. So just to try to establish what that use was, I did try to find some historical accounts. This one was from Sandpoint Magazine. It says that and he does it all here, talking to Dr. Bird, from his expansive lakefront home and Bird Space Technology Research Facility at Glengarry Bay on Lake Pend Oreille. His estate blends his work with the medical field and his application in aviation. Respirators are assembled and manufactured at a facility next to his home, an operation which employs about 25 and attracts visiting researchers from around the world. So just one thing I wanted to point to, this was another one in the Spokesman Review from 2017. It says, percussionaire had been located near Bird's Ranch at Glengarry Bay on Lake Pend Oreille, and talks about 50 employees. Now, I recognize not all 50 of those. I don't have an employee count of how many peak employment there was, but the point here is that it was a manufacturing, high-intensity use, aviation research facility with visiting people coming to seminars and spending the night there. And that's sort of what we're trying to replicate or use in this CUP. One final from Airport Journals talks about when he established this use. It says by 1978, Dr. Bird gradually relocated his research and development facilities to his expanding Idaho facilities some 50 miles below Canadian border on Lake Pend Oreille. So I just wanted to establish from the record and local knowledge that this facility has been used very intensely historically. Per Bonner County Revised Code 12340, talking about non-conforming uses and structures, C and D state that uses of land and structures may continue, and it's the intent of the title to permit these nonconformities to continue as required by law. So when we look at what is the law regarding nonconformities, we go to LUPA, Title 67, Chapter 65, 38, and it talks about the right to use for designated purposes, and that's a protected right. In this case, the designated purpose was a hangar facility, and it goes on to say that no rights or authority granted pursuant to this chapter shall be construed to empower any city or county to enact an ordinance or resolution which deprives an owner of the right to use improvements on a property for their design purpose based solely on the non-use of improvements for their designated purpose for a period of 10 years or less. So what that's saying is, just because you haven't used it for 10 years or less, you still have the right to use a lawfully erected and lawfully usable structure for its intended purposes. And that design purpose it means for the use which improvements were originally intended. So just again, trying to establish the fact that this was approved as a hangar and research facility, designed and built for such matters, and the owners have the right to continue that use as a non-conforming use. And this is where I said it was kind of fun. I'm researching case law today, and there's this case law, Glengarry versus Protective Association versus Bird, 1983, and this very same issue, this is pretty rare, came up on the same property. And in that Supreme Court opinion, 13786, first and foremost, the particular activities for which the Bird sought a permit were listed in their application as follows: recreational sightseeing and transport, instruction, maintenance, and charter, aerial spraying, fertilization and seeding, including weather modification, aerial lumbering and crane service, aerial medical transport, government contract services, and general research and development. And in that case, the court goes on to say, and they're talking about when you're applying for a new conditional use or special use permit, do you still get to maintain your grandfathered rights or your non-conforming rights? And the courts found that yes, unless the Birds affirmatively agree to waive their constitutional protection for any prior non-conforming uses, the scope of those uses need not be determined when reconsidering the conditional use permit application. In my opinion, what that's saying is that, sure, it's pretty obvious he had a lot of uses, but you really don't have to waive those uses and those rights. If this weren't approved today, it's my belief that what this is saying is current owners would still have the right to continue to use that as a hangar, heliport, and related research facilities. That case further goes on to say that the Idaho Supreme Court said that if a proposed activity comes within the scope of protection afforded under non-conforming uses, it will not lose that protection merely because it is the subject of an application for a variance or permit, a CUP, submitted by an owner who mistakenly has assumed that his activity is not protected. What that's saying, in my opinion, is that we're applying today for a retreat, but we're not giving up the right to do all these other things that historically occurred on the property, the non-conforming uses. So jumping back to Bonner County Revised Code 12345, it goes on and cease to say any non-conforming use of a structure and premises may be considered by the zoning commission for a change to another one. That's basically what we're here today to say. And for the title, and the zoning commission, or you in this case, need to determine that the proposed use is equally appropriate or more appropriate to the district or zone than the existing non-conforming use. So the non-conforming use is a research facility, manufacturing, quasi-industrial, heliport, space research center, weather modification center, and we're asking to bring that down to a modest sort of retreat CUP where the owners could have some seminars, use of facilities as depicted, occasional party or a wedding maybe, but really eliminate and take away all those very high intensity uses, and certainly the 25 to 50 employees that may have been there. So the observations from my perspective, the property has a vested non-conforming use as an industrial manufacturing facility, hangar, heliport, retreat center. Idaho Code provides protections for the continuation of non-conforming uses. The applicant desires to reduce the intensity of the use from the former percussion air facility. For roads, road and bridge comments do not reflect the historic use and access which is grandfathered. This facility can operate tomorrow as a medical manufacturing facility, hangar, heliport with no change in access. You can have 25 to 50 employees-ish, and there's no requirement for an upgrading of the access. So I don't think that road and bridge condition is appropriate, simply by the fact that they could continue tomorrow, just like Mr. Bird had the property. The facility and related infrastructure has been designed and has historical capacity to meet the projected demand. This infrastructure on this site is substantial. Dr. Bird was a planner and an engineer and a designer, and he designed this well. The proposed use is more conforming than the historical use. And, you know, there's not going to be heliports and whatnot, disturbances. And there is sufficient overflow parking available across the street that the applicants are agreeable to signing a shared parking agreement. And finally, there's no identified negative impacts to the safety and function of the roadways because they exist today and can be used today for the purposes that Dr. Bird had. So in conclusion, the subject property is Zone Rural 10, which provides for retreats and private community facilities through the approval of CEP. The subject property was legally constructed to be used as a heliport, hangar, lodge, and manufacturing facility. The subject property can be served by Sago Fire. The applicant is proposing a less intense use than the historic non-conforming use. And the applicants own significant property in proximity and have a desire to run a business to support the significant financial cost to upkeep the facility, ensure that it's maintained to enhance property values in the area. So that was a lot, but I just wanted to give you a big picture overview of where we've been on this property and where the Thorpes hope to take it. And I entertain questions that you might have.
The picture of the gate that you showed, is that the access that, to your knowledge, that the employees used to get into that property?
Correct.
You answered it. My question is just in your presentation. Thank you. Appreciated that. As far as the amount of traffic, do the applicants kind of have an idea of what they believe, how many people will be coming through? I imagine they're going to have some staff.
Yeah, I mean, not regular staff. What they've described to me is an occasional, educational seminar where people will come and stay and listen to a speaker and get some meals. I imagine it'd be maybe some temporary catering staff or something like that. They haven't discussed any full-time staff other than their building and grounds maintenance people that they have out there right now. In terms of maximum traffic, I use some averages in there. Really, they're just looking for the flexibility to, make this succeed. It could be one event that might be larger than the average daily occupancy when it was a manufacturing facility, and then nothing for weeks. So it's pretty variable.
Okay. And then there was a public comment that had brought up the question of nighttime activities and noise. Is there any plans for limiting some of their operations in the evenings, or there was no operating hours presented? So that's just kind of wondering.
Yeah, there is not a plan. I'd say this, one, because the overnight, guest at a seminar might be there all night, it's kind of difficult to determine what those bright lines are of, somebody's out on the deck.
I think maybe they might have been talking about more structured functions, maybe limiting
we're
those after a
open
certain time of
to
night.
reasonable conditions. The Thorpes live adjacent to this property or in proximity, and obviously, their quality of life is important to them too, and they like all their neighbors and speak highly of them. So they'd be open if there's an appropriate, cutoff. Typically, sound ordinances are 10:30 or 11 at night. I think that would probably be a reasonable time for primary activities to wind down. That wanted to be a condition, but we don't have anything proposed at this time.
Okay, see, that's what I was really kind of looking for too. Is there anything that they anticipate that there will be activities, like they already know they're going to be doing, say, 4th of July fireworks at 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
They know they're going to do that. that would be something to address, but if they don't really have anything specific, I think this kind of an issue might be more
Well, what I'd
turned over
say
to a
is-
sheriff if there's
Yeah,
really that
there-
issue.
There are
I
noise
think
standards in the county right now. There are decibel and related noise standards that are part of our laws, so I would imagine they would follow those.
Yeah,
Unless
okay, good.
further adjustments are needed in the future.
Great. I think you actually answered everything I had here. Questions? Okay, thank you very much. That was very thorough, and I appreciated the narrative that you guys presented with the application too. That helped a lot. Okay. So at this time, do you guys need me to read the rules of testimony again? I can do that if anyone missed them. Okay. All right, so at this time, I'm going to ask if anyone has a written statement they would like entered into the record. And then I'm going to call for any supporting public testimony in person or online. Any neutral public testimony in person or online. Okay. Any opposing public testimony in person or online? Okay. Please come to the microphone and state your name.
My name is Joan Harkis. I live at 1643 Glengarry Bay Road. We've owned that property, which is next door to the Bird Air Lodge, for 62 years. And we've seen it all. We've seen birds come in, we've seen them build out into the lake, which is probably would never be permitted today. I'm sure that the factory would never be permitted today, but I understand the law. This has been very educational for me to learn what the deal is here. But we still do, as next door neighbors, we have concerns because we enjoy the lake. We go to bed about 10. We have kids, children are out there too. And the idea of having kind of unlimited event access for this facility is very concerning to us. We want to see some limits. We want to see a curfew. We want to see realistic parking. This is some of the map that has been presented to you actually is on our property, which is kind of upsetting. As I say, we've been there for 62 years. We've seen the factory in operation, and we've seen the number of employees who are there and where they park. And there really wasn't enough parking down on the tarmac for the employees, so they park along the road. And that creates a lot of congestion. This is a single lane road for the most part from about Gamblin Lake to the property. So, if you're meeting somebody, you have to pull over so that they can pass you. So this is a lot of traffic that is anticipated. And then the way it's defined at an average of 50 cars a day per year is, if you do the math on that, an average, you could have one event a year with how many cars? I mean, it's crazy. It needs to be defined that there would be a specific number that not to exceed that number of cars. And, that the parking could accommodate without those cars being on the road. And also the roadway can accommodate that kind of traffic. Because I encourage you to go out there sometime and take a look at that road. It is not maintained. It's one lane. It's not a commercial throughway, and that's exactly what the Department of Highways has said. So we agree with that. So that's basically our concern. We live next door to this proposed facility. We want to enjoy our property, which, we've owned for an awful long time. Our family's now into the third generation of enjoying this property. And the idea
Sorry,
of
your
having-
time's up. Go ahead. You're gonna,
My 3 minutes.
okay,
I'm giving you my 3 minutes.
Oh,
because you just run out.
Oh, anyway, I'm
Did you get
sorry.
that?
Anyway, yeah, we want to make sure, we want Steve and Terry to be able to add value to their property. We understand that. That's their right to do that. But at the same time, it shouldn't devalue our property or our enjoyment of our property. So we hope that you will take these concerns into consideration as you make your ruling. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a hand.
And you can actually, can he finish the?
Yeah.
I'm Phil Rosted, I'm Joan's wife. One of the reasons that the road is not maintained is because the county can't turn their equipment around. Which again, with fires and other things, that could be an issue. So if the county has to upgrade that road to accommodate this, that would be an issue.
Thank you.
We have a hand raised online now.
Okay. Go ahead online.
My name is Charles Goligoski. I own property at 61 Glen Drive. And I kind of skipped over the neutral. I don't know if I'm opposed. So I'm more neutral but I think what needs to be highly considered is the road conditions on the Glengarry Bay Road. I will second the previous speaker's comments. That is a very narrow road. It is not maintained very well. In the winter time, it's allowed by two neighbors that live out there that are contracted with the county in order to keep that road open in the winter time. They do the best they can, but it's not as plowed as well as if the county plow could be out there. The other concern with the condition of the road is the amount of traffic. Now, I'm pretty sure there's no traffic studies have been done in order to estimate what the increase in traffic has been, especially since the bird operation has been closed. But I do know that traffic on Sago Road into Glengarry Bay Road has increased to the point where they had to put a traffic light on the corner of Sago Road and Highway 95. So I would really emphasize the road condition and the amount of traffic on that road. It is a one-lane road from Gamblin Lake, and to have commercial traffic on that road is difficult now. To have increased commercial traffic is going to make it even increasingly more difficult. I encourage you not to disregard the comments provided by DePauw County Road and Bridge Department. It is absolutely critical that road is maintained and or upgraded. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else online?
And we have Matt Mulder here from Road and Bridge if you have any questions specifically about that comment.
So do I bring him up after Jeremy, or bring him up now?
You might want to bring him up now if Jeremy wants to respond to anything he has to say. So if you have specific questions, I would ask him of that.
So yeah, Matt, I do. Thank you. Seems to be this is the hot topic for this one.
Yeah, Matt Mulder, staff engineer for the Road and Bridge Department. So that sign that says county maintenance ends here, that comes as a bit of a surprise to me. And didn't know that sign was down there at the turnaround. I've been out on projects where we maintained all the way down to this property in the past. And in going over our comments with the county road and bridge director, up until 2 years ago, he was the maintenance foreman for this district. And he didn't seem to be aware that we were no longer maintaining to the end of the road here. So there was apparently some disconnect as to when that sign went up, what we're doing now. And on the county GIS system, it shows our maintenance going up to this property still as well. So apparently we need to do some investigating as to when that sign went up, who authorized pulling maintenance back to that point, and update the county GIS map. But for the purposes of our comments regarding encroachment permits, it really doesn't matter, because if it's not county maintained, it's still a county-owned public right-of-way that's being privately maintained. And so the county standards for encroachment permits for driveways or commercial approaches all still apply, whether it's county maintained or not. I don't remember exactly what year it was that they applied for their existing residential encroachment permit into that property. If I had to take a guess, maybe it was 2017. When they did that, they would have had the option at that time to ask for a commercial encroachment permit to reflect the the preconditions, the pre-existing conditions and historic use of the property, but opted not to at that point. They went with the residential approach, which is an easier approach to build, shorter site distances, smaller turning radii, a narrower approach, all of that. It meets those requirements, but doesn't meet commercial. So in order to meet the commercial conditions, upgrades would need to be made, and certainly it would be near impossible to meet some of those when you have all of the constraints to the right-of-way through there. And the 13-foot wide asphalt in a 20-foot wide right-of-way is very substandard to what we normally would see, where we have a 60-foot wide right-of-way and a 24-foot wide, ideally, paved road. So 13 feet is not enough for two cars to pass each other without somebody pulling over. So we certainly have concerns about an increase in traffic out there.
So when you're talking about commercial versus residential, how did they get a residential encroachment when they had a manufacturing business out there and they had a research facility versus, I mean, was there a reason that the county did not require the commercial? Because it was, I'm just not quite understanding the difference between the two, because residential to me sounds like homes, commercial to me sounds
Yes.
like manufacturing business, which
Exactly
is what they had.
so. Exactly so. We don't generally do much research into the uses at a property when
Yeah.
somebody applies for a residential encroachment permit. Our permit tech would go out there, look at an existing approach and says, yes, this meets the requirements for a residential approach, and it would get signed off, and we'd drop a GPS point in it for 911 to easily be able to find that driveway, and away you would go.
So how does this become more commercial than that manufacturing business though?
I don't know that it would. I just know that they applied for a residential one at whatever point in time that happened.
But now you guys are requiring a commercial, or you're
Well,
wanting
ultimately,
a
it would
commercial.
be you who
Right.
gets to require that. You know, our comments
Yeah,
are.
sorry, I restate that.
Yeah.
You would prefer a commercial encroachment over what's existing for the residential based on what?
So anytime any business is starting up in here or pre-existing one, if somebody's doing a building location permit and they have an existing approach, the Road and Bridge Department says, you know, at this point, you're doing something different. Now's the time to get your historic driveway that's never been permitted, get it inspected, maybe make some upgrades if any are needed for safety's sake, for sight distance issues, for, you know, if you have stormwater issues where you have a lot of water running down the road in the winter, causing a big ice patch, and it's a danger, and people can't stop because there's no flat spot at the bottom, they're just sliding out into public roadways, things of that nature. When people are getting BLPs or CUPs, anything of that nature, is kind of when we say, all right, here's your turn. Now you need to bring your existing approach up to meet these standards, whether it's a residential standard for a home or a commercial standard for pretty much anything else.
Okay. And then the other, so the main point of, or the comment about not possibly being able to approve or give them that permit is because of the right of way. Is the distance, is that kind of one of the main things, or is there something they can, I'm just trying to understand, is there a workable process in there? Because it kind of sounds like it's a all or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, in order to meet the requirements and conditions as they're listed in the Bonner County Road Standards Manual, it's really just not possible at that location, unless you're gonna demolish the gate and do lots of other stuff. I don't feel like that's a reasonable thing to ask, but at the same time, we have to stop and ask, well, is it really worth, is it a reasonable use for the property to have that much more traffic coming in and out of there? Where you're going straight off the end of the road, that makes it quite a bit easier. The overflow parking where people are turning off of the road, that one, you probably could meet the commercial requirements there and have a 30-foot wide approach with 30-foot radiuses on both sides and meet those requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, Jeremy, your turn to rebound.
All right.
Hopefully answer some more of my questions.
All right, Jeremy Grimm for the record, Whiskey Rock Planning. Just on rebuttal, a couple things I wanted to touch on. First, I appreciate the public comment, and I appreciate Road and Bridge's comment. Worked with Mr. Mulder decades ago and respect his opinion and work. First thing, I'll just talk about the overflow parking. As was mentioned, you can see here this gray shaded area. This is an existing access road that I showed you that goes up to the tennis court, and there is a big flat area that's available for overflow parking. And in regards to the map that was put out, those lines are, illustrative. No offense, I'm sorry for leading the yellow over onto, what the GIS looked like, but I think I've established that the parking would be down below on the tarmac around the existing residence and the overflow across the street. In terms of, a cap, yeah, I get the ambiguity of this. Trying to think of a solution, I use that average 50 cars a day. I use that just because I thought of the 25 employees coming and going. 52 times a day, it'd be less than the historical use of the property. If there's a reasonable cap of 36, 40 events a year, not to exceed 200 cars or something, 150 cars, maybe that would work, but I prefer that we just keep it in context of what the Thorpes have the right to do today, which is they could restart a research aviation facility there and have helicopters and everything else running. And that leads me to the final point, which is that road and bridge standard. So as Mr. Mulder correctly pointed out, if you were coming in today to create a new commercial business, absolutely, you need to meet the standard. But that is exactly the whole point of a non-conforming use. That this use, the commercial manufacturing activity, access to the site, design of the buildings, area, impervious surface, all of that is legally non-conforming. And therefore, as I said 2 or 3 times now, tomorrow the Thorpes could go out there and fire it back up. So with no change of access. What we're asking here is to swap one non-conforming use that's arguably very intense, noise, intensity of employees, etc., and basically exchange that for a reduced impact use, which is the retreat and community facility. And we believe that that's going to be a much lower impact in comparison to what Thorpes would have the right to do today. So I will say I think there's a great opportunity outside of this, that red area. I talked to the applicant. He would be agreeable to upgrading that red area with more gravel to support a county truck, allow a county truck to come and do a 3-point turn there. I think that can happen offline and just working together with Road and Bridge and the neighbors to understand that this could be a turnaround area that improves the existing conditions out there. But the Thorpes are open to doing something illustrative to that red encroachment to allow a 3-point turn there of a county vehicle. But beyond that, I just want to emphasize that it's really not, is this a new use? It's an exchange of an existing non-conforming use to a non-conforming use that's lower intensity. And again, the Thorpes are neighbors here. They'll hear it from their neighbors. If they're bad neighbors, they want to be good neighbors, and they're putting a lot of investment in this property to make it nice for the community and make it work for them. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Was there anyone in the audience who did not sign up to speak that would like to enter any comments? I forgot to ask that question. Okay, so at this time then, I am closing this hearing to public testimony.
Exactly. I just wanted to remind you of your options in this hearing, right? So if you feel like you don't have, or if you believe you don't have enough information, you could continue the hearing and request additional specific information from the applicant, right? If you want to analyze the information you already have and make a decision within the next 5 days, a written decision, that's also an option. You don't have to decide today. The other would be to make a recommendation to the zoning commission, and we talked about that before. Or you can make a decision on it. Okay. If you have additional questions for staff, I know this dives into a code provision that I don't think had talked about yet, that non-conforming code.
That part of it wasn't worrying me as much as the encroachment.
Right. So I think Jeremy presented an argument in the non-conforming use code that talked about this is swapping one non-conforming use for a new non-conforming use is less intense. I don't believe that code provision applies because what's being proposed is a conforming use in the commercial use table. So it's not swapping one non-conforming for a less intense non-conforming. It's essentially, I don't think enough evidence has been provided to say that there was a retreat previously on this property and we want to continue that under a new CUP. What they've applied for is a specific use that's already in that use table with a specific set of standards. So the comment on the roads comes out of the standards provided in the code. So.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So I think for me, the concern is the traffic usage. And that's what I was trying to get a feel for because of that, for instance, that gate being 18 feet wide, I think, and being the employee access. But that had been an employee access every day. And so there were people driving in and out every day, upwards of 25 employees. And then researchers and visitors. And wasn't there a museum out there? Or was that in a different location?
Yes, different location.
Okay, good.
So
that'd be up a whole nother thing.
I think Mr. Grimm is correct in that if they can prove that the non-conforming use of the research facility and others as stated had occurred within the last 10 years, they can continue to use the structure for that use.
Yeah.
And they would not be required to do anything to meet any county standards now. What's presented in this file is a retreat, and in that has specific, and it gives us the ability to use today's standards and today's code to apply to that use as proposed.
Yeah.
So yes, it had non-conforming commercial uses before. What's presented now is what I would consider a new conforming use that you could use today's standards to apply.
Okay.
So if the applicant then disagrees with your decision, let's say you do decide to say, yes, we're going to require this commercial encroachment permit. I disagree with Mr. Mulder because I think that any provision could be granted with enough time and effort, right? So right-of-ways can be expanded, roads can be built.
Well, that was a question I was wondering.
Right. So they could also appeal this decision to the board and take it up with the board to either overturn or ratify the decision. So there's a lot of different avenues moving forward, and you have a bunch of options today. So again, you can continue it and request specific information. You can not make a decision and do something in writing in the next 5 days, or you can request it go to the zoning commission, which will meet again next month.
You actually just answered the question, one big question I had that was out there, so thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, no, that's great, actually. Thank you. You just cleared something up for me. Okay. Okay. Okay, so all this information, was a lot. But the big thing for me that stood out, I really appreciate you clarifying that on the difference between the non-conforming and the retreat per code now. I do believe that, yes, it was a manufacturing facility in the past, and they are looking for a retreat in private community, which I think is actually more in line with the design of the community now, and what would be, I think, better suited out there honestly, than a big manufacturing research facility with hangars and planes coming in and out. So I agree with that. The big concern for me then landed on the road. And I was concerned that the Road and Bridge Department had said that they could not approve a commercial encroachment out there. But you had brought up that it's not all set in stone, and I do believe that if they could work together, I do believe that they could make that happen to the benefit of every party involved. And so, having said that, I am not going to strike that encroachment condition. I do believe that it needs to stay. And so I am going to go ahead and approve this project file CUP 0005-23 for a retreat and private community facility, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing, I further adopt the findings of facts and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report, or as amended during this hearing, which is not, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this decision and transmit to all interested parties. The action that could be taken to obtain the conditional use permit is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in the taking of private property. Okay, so with that, I close file CUP 0005 dash, what was I? Sorry, I'm gonna save this out loud. Okay, here we go. I close file CUP 0005-23. Okay. That's fine. Is there any staff updates?
I don't have any specific updates as it sits right now. I think we have our next, like I mentioned, we do have kind of a more full summer as we look into going forward. We are trying not to schedule more than, I think, 4 hearings on.
Okay.
So I think that's
Cool.
we try to cap on 4. I know you'll see Alex a few more times. He's getting more conditional use permits and variance files. So yeah, so just a heads up, there'll be a number of files coming over the next month and a half that we're seeing. I think we're in the middle of August right now. So.
Oh, wow.
And if
Nice.
we'll try to get those
Busy.
staff
Good.
reports to you as soon as we can. If you have questions on those, you can always reach out to staff.
Okay.
So,
And
that's
are
all.
you guys still voluntarily on your own coming in on Fridays? But the office is still closed Fridays, right?
The office is closed Fridays. We tend to we have staff members in there on on Friday morning.
I hate to find you guys on Fridays.
No, that's fine.
Playing.
Yeah, feel free to send an
You
email.
deserve to go play.
No, it's okay. I usually do by appointment on Fridays, and
Yeah, that's
so if you ever just want to sit down and meet, you can always send an email and say, hey, you're going to meet Friday at 10.
Okay.
That'll be fine with me. So I would like to set up a time to kind of go over a few things with you here in the near future. So.
Yeah, that would probably be good. This one is a.
I don't have any other updates for you this time.
Okay. Anybody else? No, good. Okay. All right. So at this time, then I'm going to adjourn until the next planning hearing.